Hey Ryan, Michael Galloway here, the We Don't Need No Stinking Record Company.com. We're talking about music, musicians, and Aspergers syndrome. It is a so-called disorder that's on the what you would call the autism spectrum, and people can have it very intensely if it's more towards autism, and if they're more towards normal, they'll have it less. I might mention that these symptoms seem to come out worse the more those of us who carry this thing are under stress. And so, and I also might mention that when we are upset about something because of a disruption in schedule or our flow or our work or anything like that, we feel extremely justified, even if we aren't. And so I find myself, having learned about this about myself a couple of years ago and learning to manage it better. You know, I've always had a tinge of anger underneath in my life, and I've managed it okay or kept it stomped down. But the more I learn about it, the more I find ways to keep from having that issue, and so I avoid circumstances that create extra stress if I can. And I get into the kind of stressors that I enjoy and that I can handle instead. But I was reading an article by Daniel Durrani about autism. About Aspergers syndrome, and you know, he made an observation that I made a while back, that people with Aspergers are kind of like Vulcans in Star Trek. There's an awful lot of emotion and stuff raging below the surface, and often we shut down our emotions almost entirely because they're too intense and we can't handle that, and we become you know, pretty sometimes pretty impersonal, or we're able to cut things off and shut down emotions sometimes inappropriately, but sometimes when other people can't. So, but there are some big advantages to what we do. We tend to get on a subject and find all the interesting things about it, and maybe even start talking about it, and probably as we get older, talk way too much. That would be me. And that's why I felt like the video blog format for the last 365 plus posts that I've done was the place to go, because I can't shut up. But maybe to explain part of that is, at least for me and other people I know who have Asperger's, we don't know how to relate to people very well. So we don't relate to people very well. We have to find a niche to become a lubricant, especially those of us that are close enough to normal that we want to be socially plugged in. Some of us can just drop away and become hermits and be just fine, enjoy ourselves and not be lonely and all that. But those of us who are more towards the middle and want to be plugged in socially and don't know how to do it, there's some things that we do. We have a tendency to, well, for me, I'll talk for myself. If I'm not teaching you, serving you, impressing you, performing for you, or somehow helping you, a lot of times I don't even know how to relate to you. And so I've had to learn to ask the questions and learn to be interested in what other people have to say. And I've had to tell them sometimes, look, I'm going to talk a long time on this if you let me, because I'm not picking up your visual cues, especially people I know well. I'm not picking up your visual cues. I don't know when you're getting bored, and you might have to let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to talk you into the ground. And that, you know, in some cases, if we're lecturers, that's perfect. Who cares? I can read an audience that's 15, 20, 25 feet away. I can pick up on that, and it's not too intense. If somebody's right in front of me, I have a tendency to have a very difficult time looking them in the face long enough to pick up on how they're feeling and how they're receiving what I'm telling them. So our inbound communication requires sometimes a lot of verification. When I'm doing my consulting, I'll say, this is what I heard you say, is that correct? An awful lot to make sure I got it. But, you know, let's see. There's some reasons to hire people if you happen to have a chance to hire somebody with Asperger's syndrome. And some of these, I think, may be very self-serving, so take them with a grain of salt. But one is you're going to get the maximum effort for the task that has to be done. That's one. Another is we tend to show up every single time, and a lot of us are really good at showing up on time. but I can't remember the last time that I was out for a day because I was sick. Maybe one of my bosses can, but I can't remember. I have a son. I don't think he's missed a day in school for a very, very long time. He's got Aspergers syndrome and just simply does not like to get off routine and off task if he can possibly help it. It says here that we're very bright individuals who think exceptionally at a high level. I hope that's true. Honest working people who strive to be ethical and moral people. And that's true because we tend to get rules stuck on our head and follow them. There are notable exceptions. I believe that Richard Nixon was probably had Asperger's syndrome. I believe that Hitler probably had Asperger's syndrome. In their contorted view of their own morality, they probably did think they were being very moral in what they were doing, but obviously many of us would disagree. So we're a reliable worker. I mentioned that. We're going to be there on time, getting maximum results for the organization, and value the details that will make a big difference in the organization. It's funny, there are certain kind of details that I have problems with, but process is not one of them. I will push to nail down every little step. Programmers have told me they could program right off of the steps that I've written because I go down to binary level on them. We bring a different dimension to your company, whether it's our organizational skills or thinking outside the box or innovative solutions to problems or daily inspirations. I hope we do that. I can't say that every one of us can achieve that, but we bring a lot of that. We tend to be pretty resilient until the task has been accomplished. So like for me, if I'm in on a job or if I'm producing on a record or something like that, I'll stay as long as it takes if that's what I need to do, and probably be pretty excited about it. I can't tell you how many times at one of my recent consulting gigs that I worked till 8 or 9 or 10 at night, partly because the job needed to be done, partly because I was having a blast working on what I was working on. We're detail and data oriented to the most exact point possible, especially in computers and research and stats. But on the other hand, I think only a few of us are really good at things like accounting and getting things in the right bucket, but some of us are exceptional at that. So anyway, that's a little bit more about Asperger's syndrome and some of the tendencies we have that are good. We also have a tendency to get a little bit fixated, but not so much that. As an example, I've spent quite a bit of time flying airplanes, and you think that things might make me freeze up, but you're so heavily trained in an aircraft to the contingencies and exactly what to do that an engine can quit, and it's happened to me, and you'll just go through and execute the exact routines that you're supposed to execute. And it's actually very comforting to do that while your airplane is sinking to the ground. That will probably be the only engine out that I ever have because it happens so rarely. But it can work in our favor and in yours very, very many times. So I'm Michael Galloway. We're going to come back with a little bit more on Asperger's syndrome, music and musicians, and some of the work world. And I hope this is helping you understand some of us and maybe figure out how to utilize us a little bit better. I'll be back. Thanks.